You came back. Good. Pull up a chair and try not to make a sound. This is the last whisper. There's an old rule in the mountains that nobody writes down, but every hunter learns it eventually. After dark, you don't go outside for anything. Not for a noise, not for a voice, not even if something out there is calling your name. Because the things that hunt at night already know the one thing that can kill you, your own curiosity. And the man in this story, he learned that rule the hard way. By morning, he'd fired every round he owned, his truck was destroyed, and the thing that saved his life had been dead for 6 years. Stay with me, because this one doesn't end the way you think. Let's call him Dale, a welder, mid-40s, the kind of guy who'd spent half his life in these woods and never once felt scared in them. His family had owned a hunting cabin up in the high country for 3 generations, and Dale drove up there alone that night after a brutal 12-hour shift. He was running on fumes, and that exhaustion, that bone-deep tiredness, is the first reason he made the mistake that nearly got him killed. He got inside, dropped into that old chair by the window, and realized he'd left his rifle out in the truck. Now, any other night he'd have grabbed it on the first trip, but he was tired, and tired people get careless. So he hauled himself up and walked back out into the dark, leaving the cabin door wide open behind him. That open door matters, remember it. The moon was full that night, so the clearing was lit up silver. And the second Dale stepped off that porch, every sound in the forest just stopped. No crickets, no wind, no owls. Anybody who spends time outdoors knows that silence is not peaceful. That silence means every animal in earshot is hiding from something. Dale felt eyes on the back of his neck, and he picked up his pace toward the truck. He got the passenger door open, reached in for his gun case, and that's when the feeling got so strong he couldn't ignore it. Something was watching him. He turned around slow, and peeking out from the back corner of the cabin was a head, a canine head. The only thing he could make out clearly were 2 eyes glowing a deep, wet red, locked dead onto his. He didn't move. The animal stepped out into the moonlight, and that's when Dale's brain refused to accept what he was looking at. It was a dog, but it was the size of a small horse. And even standing in full moonlight, it was completely black. Not like fur, but like the light just refused to land on it. Its body had this shifting darkness coming off it, little curls of shadow rising up like black flames. Dale had hunted bear, elk, mountain lion. He had never seen anything alive that looked like that. He reached for the pistol on his hip out of pure instinct, and his stomach dropped. It was inside, on the coffee table, right next to the backpack that had all his rifle ammo in it. So here's the situation Dale's in. He's standing in an open clearing, his rifle's empty, his pistol's inside, the cabin door is open, and there's a thing the size of a horse looking at him like he's dinner. And then it threw its head back and let out a howl that didn't sound like any animal. It sounded almost mournful, almost like a warning. Then it charged. Dale threw himself backward into the truck and yanked the door shut. A half-second later, that thing slammed into the door so hard the inner panel popped off and left a dent like a car wreck. Then it stood up on its hind legs, put both paws on the window, looked him in the eye, and grabbed the door handle with its teeth. Let that sink in. It wasn't clawing, it wasn't biting, it was trying to open the door. Dale slammed the lock down and the dog tilted its head, almost confused, like it couldn't figure out why the door wouldn't work. Then it trotted around to the driver's side and tried that handle too. Dale locked it just in time. So the thing climbed up into the truck bed, backed itself against the tailgate like a runner setting up, and launched itself at the rear window. The glass spiderwebbed. Dale jammed his back against the dash and braced his boots against the glass. It hit again. Pain shot up his legs so hard he screamed. Then it backed up one final time, rocketed forward, and at the last second veered sideways, hitting the glass right next to his feet where nothing was bracing it. It came through. That massive head punched into the cab, thrashing, widening the hole, and it clamped onto Dale's pant leg and started dragging him out through the broken window. He grabbed the steering wheel, he grabbed the seat, none of it mattered. This thing was strong enough to pull a grown man through a truck like he weighed nothing. It hauled him out over the side of the bed and started dragging him across the dirt toward the cabin. And then, for no reason Dale could see, it stopped. Its head snapped toward the tree line. It let out a low growl at something in the dark, looked back at him once, and bolted off into the woods, leaving him lying there in the dirt. Dale didn't waste the gift. He scrambled up, grabbed his rifle case, and started limping for the cabin. His legs were screaming. He got about halfway when the brush rustled and the dog came right back out of the trees. But here's what's strange. It didn't charge this time. It just locked eyes with him, barked, and trotted toward him slow, almost like it was hurting him. Dale made it to the open door, dove inside, slammed it, and threw the bolt. He braced for the impact. It never came. He dragged himself to the window and looked out, and what he saw made no sense. The dog was just pacing, back and forth across the front of the porch. It kept whipping its head toward the tree line, then back to the door, then to the tree line again. It didn't try to break in. It didn't make a sound. It was watching the woods, guarding. And that's when a cold thought crept into Dale's mind. What if the dog was never the thing he should have been afraid of? He loaded his rifle. He grabbed the pistol off the table and put it on his hip. He was ready now. And right as he finished, the dog disappeared around the back of the cabin. Dale moved to the rear window to track it. Nothing out there. Silence again. And then, a knock at the front door. A knock. Not a scratch. Not a bark. A knock. Slow, deliberate 3 times. Dale's blood went cold because a dog doesn't knock. He crept toward the door. Who's there? Nothing. Another series of knocks, then a voice, faint, shaky, human. It said it was lost, said it was hungry and cold, said there was some kind of animal out there hunting it, and please, please let it in. And Dale, being the kind of man who'd never leave a person to die in the cold, reached for the bolt. He cracked the door open a few inches, and the second that door moved, something hit it from the outside with enough force to throw him flat onto his back. Then he heard it. Growling, snarling, the wet, tearing sound of flesh being ripped apart, and a scream that did not sound like anything that had ever been human. The sounds dragged off into the woods and faded. Dale grabbed his rifle and threw the door open, ready to save whoever was out there. But there was no one. No body, no blood trail, just the black dog standing alone in the clearing, staring off into the trees. It turned, looked at him, and barked, hard and frantic. And Dale finally understood. There was no lost traveler. The voice at the door was the bait, and the dog had just torn it apart before it could get inside. He shut the door. The dog climbed up onto the porch, laid down facing the woods, and let out a low, steady growl into the dark. It guarded that door the rest of the night. Every time Dale looked out, it was there. Until just before dawn, when it stood up, looked at him through the glass one last time, and walked off into the trees, barking the whole way. And Dale, exhausted, furious, sick of being prey in his own woods, made the second worst decision of the night. He saw 2 red eyes appear at the tree line. And instead of staying inside where it was safe, he grabbed his rifle, threw open the door, stepped out into the last of the dark, and yelled that he'd had enough. He raised the gun toward those eyes, and the thing that answered him was not the dog. A sound came out of the trees like 100 people screaming at once. And what walked out into the clearing stood on 2 legs, roughly the size of a man, but wrong in every proportion, hunched, long arms hanging down to its knees, ending in claws, skin pale and stretched tight over hard muscle, and all over its body were bite marks and gashes that looked like they'd healed over and torn open 100 times. Red eyes, like the dog's. Pointed ears it pinned back as it pulled its lips off a mouthful of fangs. This was the thing that had been knocking. This was the voice that asked to come in. It dropped low, spread its claws wide, and came at him faster than anything that size has any right to move. Dale backpedaled, firing as fast as he could work the rifle. The rounds hit. They did nothing. No blood, no stagger, nothing. The rifle clicked empty and he threw it, drew his pistol, kept firing as he backed away, and then his heel caught on a root and he went down. The thing was nearly on top of him, and out of the dark, the black dog hit it like a freight train. It slammed into the creature full force and sent it tumbling across the dirt. The thing shrieked and bared its fangs, but here's the detail Dale never forgot. It would not fight the dog. It dodged it, twisted away from it, but it would not strike back. All it wanted was Dale. The dog hit it again, and this time it got a grip and held on. They rolled across the ground, tearing at each other until the dog pinned it down flat. And right then, the sun broke over the ridge. The light hit the creature's skin and it started to boil. It shrieked and thrashed, trying to claw free, but the dog would not let go. Its flesh blistered, split, gave way to bone, and then the whole thing went up in flame and burned down to a pile of ash in the dirt. And the dog stood over it and howled, and as the sunlight spread across the clearing, the shadow that wrapped its body started to peel away, revealing something smaller underneath. Something Dale recognized. It was his dog, his best friend, the one that had been dead and buried behind that cabin for 6 years. The animal had died saving his life once before, throwing itself between Dale and a charging black bear so he could get clear. It bought him those seconds with its own life, and now, somehow, it had come back, wearing the dark like armor, to do it one more time. It ran to him, knocked him flat, and licked his face while he sat there in the dirt and cried like a child. Then it turned, ran around the back of the cabin toward its own grave, and by the time Dale got to his feet and followed, it was gone. So Dale did what people do when they survive something that breaks every rule they thought they knew. He went looking for answers, and the closest thing he ever found was the old folklore about the creature in the clearing, the thing with the pale skin and the healing wounds. The stories all agreed on one rule: it cannot enter your home on its own. It has to be invited. It knocks, it pleads, it wears a voice you'll want to trust. And the longer it goes without feeding, the more starved and twisted and monstrous it becomes, which is exactly why this one looked the way it did. It had been hungry for a very, very long time. And that's when the whole night clicked into place for Dale. The open door he left behind him, the dog dragging him away from the cabin, not toward it, the pacing on the porch, the growling at the tree line. Every single thing that dog did that night was to keep him inside and keep that door shut. It knew what was waiting in the dark. It knew Dale would do exactly what he did, which is try to be brave and step outside. And it spent the whole night standing between its old friend and a death that was patient enough to knock politely. Dale never could explain how a dead animal claws its way back through 6 years of dirt to guard a door. There's no folklore for that, no legend, just one buried dog and one simple fact, that whatever it is that ties a loyal animal to the person it loves, it turned out to be stronger than death itself. But here's the part that should keep you up tonight. That creature waited until Dale was alone, exhausted, and just careless enough to open his own door. It studied him, it learned his kindness, and used it as a key. So the real question isn't whether things like that are out there in the dark. The question is this: if something stood outside your door tonight, wearing a frightened voice and begging to be let in, how sure are you that you'd be able to tell the difference? And if you've already opened that door before without knowing it, what exactly have you been living with ever since?